And London's just like, all of my feelings towards cows have been
vindicated,
amplified by this situation.
And we get one tiny crumb. They're like, you get drunk with your cousin one time. What happened there? I ask everyone. I ask you, Anita Kelly, specifically.
You know what? I am adding Ask Anita Kelly about the cow to my to-do list.
Please. I'm Melody Carlisle.
And I'm Sabrina Bradley.
And this is Heaving Bosoms. This is the podcast where best friends recap romance novels and other kissing media that makes us swoon, snark, and refills our cups.
Whether you've read the book or are coming in blind, we'll lay bare every delicious scene and revel in the tropes and subgenres that make romance amazing.
All right, listener, strap in and strap on. Headphones are highly recommended. Okay, Sabrina, I have a question for you.
Oh, sweet fuck. Okay.
Nemesis Watch 2024. Where is the state
Watch.
of your Libby? Yeah. What is the state of the second book
Watch.
in
All right.
that series?
Okay. All right. I still have one person waiting on the third book.
Yeah, fuck them.
Oh.
I hope it's the same person.
No. I have one person waiting on the third book and the fourth book now.
Ooh, do you feel bad?
Fuck no.
You shouldn't.
Fuck no. All right.
Can you imagine if you're somebody else's nemesis, though?
We're probably nemesi together.
I know, you're probably nemesis. Yeah.
Nemesis.
Yeah.
Whatever. I like nemesi. You know what? I'm making it. It's a word. You understood what I meant. Yeah, no, I placed this hold 8 days ago. They have to be coming up soon. Like, it has to be coming up soon because in theory, you read it in like 3 or 4 days probably. That's an average person reading a 400-page book, okay? That's not a me. That's not a you.
It's not a Sabrina.
Like, I am first in line. How dare you? But yeah, now the third and the fourth book have one person. I only have 6 days left before all 4 of those holds go back.
What are you gonna do?
I may end up
Are you gonna break your rule?
I may just buy the books.
Oh, of course you're not gonna break your rule. Of course not. You're right.
Did you think I was gonna jump books and skip around in the series like a...
I mean, if you knew you were getting the second one imminently, and you also knew because one of your best friends told you that the third and the fourth book are characters you've met already, and the second book has nothing to do with anybody we've ever seen before.
I know all of that information, but what if something happens in the second... You don't know if it's important to read the second book because you haven't read the second book.
That's true. However, I will say, so sorry, listener, we are talking about the Spy Master series by Joanna Bourne. As of your time, listener, you have heard that book if you listen to the last 2 episodes. But Sabrina and I got immediately obsessed. I've already read the 3rd, 4th, and I'm in the middle of the 5th book right now, I think. Yes. And... like, it's wild. This series in particular is one, like, I've never seen before because a lot of times series will be, like, chronological or the series will be, like, happening, the 2 books will be happening at the same time layered over each other. And so you get, like, bits and pieces and whatever. This series is wild, though, because it's the first book. Then the second book is people were never even mentioned to my knowledge. Then the third book is a prequel to the first book and mentions a bunch of stuff we saw referenced in the first book. The fourth book is Hawker in, like, way in the future and then also way in the past. So we get like dual timelines that kind of overlap with the first book in some places, kinda. And then the fifth book is right back to after I think they get back from the first book back to whatever times.
Listener, don't worry. We're going to go ahead. We're going to record something once because once I have this series, I'm about to tear through it like tissue paper. It's going to be grisly.
Well, and Sabrina's nemesis is kind of my nemesis too, because I can't talk about these books in any kind of satisfying way until Sabrina's done with them, which is also bullshit.
Whoever it is out there, if you listen to this series, okay, and you live in Arkansas, okay, and you currently have my Lord and Spymaster sitting in your fucking loans, and you haven't returned it yet, and you have finished that book, I hope you know that Heaving Bosoms podcast has a vendetta. Has a vendetta and
big vendetta.
How dare you?
We're nemesi now.
If you message me and you return it right now, which not this,
we'll
this
be
doesn't
fine.
matter because this is like 4 weeks from now.
No, we'll be totally fine.
I'm just putting it out in the universe. If you do that, if you return it right this very second and message me to confess your sins, I'll send you Heaving Bosom stickers. Okay, this is a bribe. This is a bribe.
I was just going to forgive them. You're bribing them.
I'm bribing them. Absolutely. I'm bribing them.
It's desperate over here.
It's so desperate. Okay. So this week, we're doing Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. Look at me, Melody, telling them the name of the book before we jump fuck in the deep end. And
hell yeah.
But
before that,
we have patrons.
Yeah,
damn it! One of these days
we have patrons.
One of these days, we're gonna do this in the proper order.
No, listen, man. One of us always remembers at some point. I think it's working fine. Okay,
it's fine.
So
everything is fine.
Thank you so much to everybody who's part of the Patreon. Whether you come to the live events, or you only listen to the audio, or you love the video that we put up along with the audio and all that kind of stuff. We are so thankful for each and every one of you. So, hey, welcome and thanks to Aaron W. and Katie K.
Hello to Sophia K. and Samantha.
Olivia M. and Veronica.
Stephanie M. and Robin K.
Emily and Riley M.
Thank you
so much.
We appreciate you and hope that you're having fun, just like we are.
Yeah. Okay, but now... Hello, everyone.
Book. Melody, did you love Book?
I loved it.
I also loved Book. Book was fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
So, listener.
Am I Dahlia, though, is my question to you, Sabrina. Am I Dahlia?
I feel like you have Dahlia traits, yeah? To be fair, I also have Dahlia traits.
Oh, you definitely do. You definitely do.
This is a Dahlia-coded podcast, you know?
For sure. I mean, I think, like, especially when looking back at when I was in my early and mid-20s, where she is right now, definitely. I think I'm
early mid-20s? She's 28 years old.
Oh, she's 28?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my before kids self.
Oh, okay.
Like, definitely, I see a lot of myself in Dahlia. That's obviously changed since I pushed 2 humans out of my body, and now my life looks completely different. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
Especially being inside of Dahlia's head, there are a lot of times where I was like, How did you...
Sometimes it was a little bit like, don't call me out like that.
Have you been watching me, Anita Kelly?
Where are the cameras, Anita? Tell us.
What kind of mad scientist technology do you have that gave you a look directly inside of my brain?
From the past. Mm-hmm. How dare she? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's some top level, more than CIA shit right there. Mm-hmm. God, it's wizard stuff.
All right, so we open up with Dahlia, and she is good at cutting onions. And this is just very important to me because that was such a beautiful note.
Yes. And I love that it's bookended in like the first sentence and the last
sentence. I made a note of that. Because this book ends with her cutting onions.
Just now.
I got chills
just now.
It was beautiful.
Okay.
So she is good at cutting onions, and she is cooking right now.
Well, no, she's not. No. I thought when we walk in, it's just her head. She's fixated on cutting onions and how she's like really good at it because she's currently walking on set to a reality amateur chef show, and she's having to sort of like remind herself that she can do this.
Super side note. Just interestingly, I don't know when these books came out exactly, but what a niche but surprisingly common, highly specific subgenre of queer people on reality TV shows. I think in the last 2 months we've done 2 books on it. Are there more reality TV show queer books? Because like
Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera is one. It's a baking show.
Oh,
it's a sapphic book that we did forever
ago. I know
ago.
exactly what book you're talking about. Huh.
Yeah. That's one I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I just think that if you are especially, like if you're a person and you are looking for a partner or partners, what we've learned in the last couple of months is like maybe try going on a reality show, especially if you're queer.
Yeah. That's the secret. That like all of you queer folks out there that
get rid of the dating apps, okay?
Yeah, get rid of the dating app, go out for a reality TV show. Like, this is it. This is how you find the love of your life.
That's what we learned.
Yeah, so she's walking onto the set of Chef's Special, which is a cooking show. And we don't need to dig in and describe it because it's basically like every other cooking show.
Literally everyone. For amateurs. Yeah.
And then she bumps into somebody. And it's a adorable, taller than her.
Tall.
Not that that's hard because apparently she's very tiny.
She's like 5 foot nothing.
Yeah. And they have strawberry blonde hair and freckles.
Freckles everywhere. And they can only basically stare and grunt right now. And meanwhile, she's doing the nervous, I'm going to mouth diarrhea at you. And so she's like, oh my gosh, hi, it's so weird to be here. And like, I'm so nervous. And I don't think I've been more nervous since like my 4th grade spelling bee when I did pee myself.
And misspelled whistle.
Yeah.
And this was the first time that I went, oh.
Uh-oh.
I'm Dahlia. Okay. All right. Interesting. So they go to their station, they get introduced to the show, blah, 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 blah. And the person that she bumped into continues to do nothing but grunt at her. She keeps trying to be so like friendly and nice and like good luck and smiling. Yeah. And this character's just like,
it just can't even like cannot deal. And with the show, like everybody is set up at stations of 2. So she right now is at a station with a dude. This person is behind her with another person, but like they're directly behind her, which becomes important to everyone. Yeah.
And this isn't super critical to note. We could not talk about this, but
we're going to.
We're going to.
Look out.
When she goes to present her food, her fish tacos, we
have to talk about this. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We don't have to talk about this. What are you talking about?
We don't. It comes up like 3 times in the book, and it doesn't really affect the plot of the book.
I'm so sorry, Sabrina. No. This manic pixie dream girl has like kept her shit together for an entire hour-long cooking challenge, okay? She's making fish tacos. And she actually says, like, I hope I don't trip and fall on the way to the pantry. And then she's like, good job, Dahlia. You didn't trip and fall on the way to the pantry. And then when she's going around to, like, actually shove the food in the judges' mouths, that's when she trips and kersplats
fish
all
tacos
over the
everywhere.
Floor. There's, like, purple cabbage all over the fucking place. She's got crema on her face. Like, this is important to everyone, but it's very important to Dahlia because there's only a specific kind of person who can bounce back from something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Dahlia's that person. And everybody forgives her because she's just the right amount of shit show. Friendly shit show.
Yes. And this is when I realized I wasn't a Dahlia. because I would not have recovered.
Because you would have curled into a ball.
Yeah, I would have curled into, and they'd be like, Sabrina, and I just would have been like catatonic on the floor. I just wouldn't be responsive. They'd be like, medic, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But medic.
So then we go to the next chapter, and London is sitting at the hotel bar, and they just want like one moment of peace and quiet. God damn it. Can they just drink their bourbon and have everyone leave them alone?
And Dahlia said, absolutely, you cannot fucking do that, because she rolls up. And so London, we're in London's point of view.
Dahlia.
I never would have done this. So London is sitting there thinking about Dahlia because of her hair, her big, long, luscious black hair. And they were just so distracted by it. They were distracted by Dahlia.
Well, and they've got very short hair. And understandably, they're like, this is unhygienic. Are they going to make this bitch put up her hair or what? Because otherwise, they're just going to keep on. It's going to be like one of those magician tricks with the tied together handkerchiefs, pulling out this thing. It's just hair out of your mouth if she continues with her bullshit. And then they realize, yes, she does put up her hair. She's going to do that.
And also, now that we're in London's point of view, London was doing nothing but grunting earlier, but they did in fact think that Dahlia's rambling was like super adorable, but they're also very, very harried, but
pun unintended.
Very harried by the fact that Dahlia is like all over the place. And so she shows up and immediately starts rambling again. And she throws her purse down and she's like, why do you do nothing? She comes in hot. She's like, why do you do nothing but grunt at me? What did I do to you? Why do you not like me? Blah, blah. And London is just staring at her like, what the hell? And then they've barely said anything. And then Dahlia is like, I'll take a bourbon too, order some chips and salsa, finishes her bourbon. The waitress shows back up. She orders another. And before the waitress can bring back her new bourbon, takes a sip of London's bourbon and then eats some chips and salsa. And then the waitress brings back her new bourbon. And London this entire time is just like staring at her slack-jawed.
Not having any idea how to respond or act or anything.
Hurricane Dahlia is what's happening.
Yeah, and Dahlia goes from like essentially shouting at London, being like, what did I do to you? To like ordering a thing. And then she's like, do you want some of these chips? They're so good. Like, and London is like, I didn't mean to like make you mad or whatever. And she's like, I'm not mad. Like I'm actually not very good at being mad. And this is when I was at Dahlia again.
This is also when I was at Dahlia.
I'm not super great at staying mad.
Nope. The minute I have said my piece, it's gone.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Which makes it really challenging when somebody else wants to, like, after I've said my piece, they're like, all right, well, now we're fighting. And I'm like, but why? Why are we fighting?
Yeah. Or if enough time goes by and I've literally forgotten why we were fighting.
That too. Or
that's a problem.
I just process it on my own and then it's just done.
Yep.
Or this is the most toxic version of this.
Ooh, tell me everything.
Or I'll... Please hold.
Listener, I can just see her lips moving, and she's saying, stop it!
Can you hear them?
I mean, I bet it sounds like they're taking over the world, because that is their MO.
Yeah.
Have they made themselves, like, cozy supervillain leotards yet? Because I feel like that needs to be the next step in their master plan.
Oh my God, have I told you my plan for the dogs?
No. Christmas beignet. Yeah, go ahead.
And gumbo. I really want to start getting professional Christmas photos taken for Christmas cards with all of us in matching sweaters.
I'm all about it.
Yeah. No, they don't have leotards yet, mostly because I don't let them at the sewing machine.
They're going to get there at some point, you know.
They really are. Frankly, if they want to start a side business sewing supervillain leotards, I am all for it. They are more than welcome to start paying rent.
You know what? One of my favorite things about you, Sabrina, is your eternal optimism. Because my scenario was that your dogs are going to make themselves supervillain costumes so that they can enact the next part of their plan. And yours is, I bet they would just think about me and they would start a business and then they would pay rent.
No. I'm going to be really honest with you. You know, how, like, I'm trying to think of an example of really any supervillain from, like, millennial TV shows where they're just completely inept and incapable of actually enacting their plans. My dogs share a single brain cell, and it just kind of pings between them. They wouldn't even get to the point of meeting the superhero because it would all fall apart long before then.
No, I'm telling you, I feel like I've said this to you before, but it's like Pinky in the Brain, except it's only 3 brains. Pinkies.
It's all pinkies. Yeah. Yeah. This is a pinky heavy household for sure. And I am including myself in that, okay? I have my brain moments, but like there's a lot of pinky up in here, okay? So anyway, maybe that's what they're doing. So they're practicing their fight scenes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so we find out that London partly didn't know what to do with Dahlia because she's a manic pixie dream girl.
Right.
But also they've had a really bad 24 hours because there was a meet and greet the night before where all of the contestants met. They get their own nemesis named Lizzie, who's a fucking asshole because London came out at the table, like at the meet and greet, as non-binary with they, them pronouns. Right. For the most part, everybody was totally chill with it. There's another lesbian named Kath, whom I'm obsessed with.
When is Kath going to get a book?
Oh my God, I need Kath to have a book. Did you know this is a series?
Novella.
Did you see the second book?
The next one is the Julie's BFF, and then it's Julie. Yeah. And Julie's a high school basketball coach, which I did not clock in this book.
Oh my God. Do we know who Julie ends up with? Is it Hank?
No. Julie ends up with just like an ex-WNBA player who's like a child or, something is on Julie's team.
Oh my God. Mel, you had gone to bed already, but at the last movie hang, we did end up on probably a solid 45-minute chat about stalking like professional athletes and things like that. And listener Charissa and I have decided that we are going to get together, and you have to come because it's going to be in Olympics? Boston. Well, yeah, we want to go to so listener Charissa and I have decided we're going to the 2024 Olympics together. Nope, that's this year. 2028 Olympics because it's in Los Angeles. I have family in LA. Let's go get hot volleyball players, Well, let's go
do it.
Ogle. But no, we have made plans that we are I'm going to come up to Boston and we're all going to hang out and you have to come because you're up near there. We're going to go see hockey and we're going to go see a WNBA game.
Oh, that sounds incredibly fun.
Yep.
Everything about that sounds like it's the best.
So anyway, so we've decided that we're doing that and you have to come too. So
I'm into it. I'll take the train up.
HB meetup in Massachusetts to see the Suns and...
Yeah, TBA, y'all.
Or the Bruins of some kind of something. Can you imagine if we went to both of those games and we just like purchased like in bulk like 50 tickets and it's just like 50 HBs. Half of them are probably reading, sitting in the stands
while they're there.
Yeah. Half of us are like just screaming our brains out. Anyway, so Lizzie was an asshole. Lizzie is now Nemesis. Nemesis Watch 2024, Lizzie v. London.
Yeah. Well, Lizzie at London. Like, London is not taking part in this at all. Because as London comes out as non-binary and very generously shares their pronouns, they're thinking, like, I'm going to do this all at once. It can just be a thing that exists in the world. And then we're done. Like, it'll be great. And Lizzie's like, she does the thing where she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, am I supposed to refer to you, an individual, as they? And she's just like, yes.
Guess what, bitch? You already do it when you talk about a single person that you don't know their fucking gender and their pronoun presentation. Everybody
Lizzie
does
surely
it
does not.
Naturally. What, you think
Lizzie
that you think she just defaults to, like, if they don't know who somebody is talking about, they just default to he or she?
They just choose. Whatever they're feeling at the time, they choose. There's never a moment when Lizzie would say they. Because she's the worst. So, and I'm
just going to say, even the worst, most transphobic assholes I've ever met in my life, if you pay attention, they do it.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Because I clock it especially people
I mean, it is more natural than people claim it is, you know?
Because what? You're going to say he or she out loud with your mouth hole?
Yeah. Like,
anyway.
If it's ambiguous at all, you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all fucking do it.
That's interesting. So, okay. And then the other reason that London was really thrown off is that they did it at this, like, big dinner thinking that every single cast member was there. And then this hurricane of hair runs in and bumps into them and, like, can't stop being a sunshine and then trips and falls into oblivion. And they're like, I planned for every contingency except for this one. I didn't know this was part of the equation. And so they're like, yeah, and you weren't at the dinner. And she's like, oh, yeah, I said I had menstrual cramps because I got real anxious about it. And they're like, that's a cop-out and that's fucked. Like, they're actually mad about it, and I don't super blame them because they're like, you don't think I was fucking anxious? Jesus. Anyway, so then when Dahlia finds out that somebody didn't take it well, she asks who, and then she asks what happened. And London out loud tells her it was Lizzie, but then not out loud tells the reader what happened. But to Dahlia, they're like, you know, it's just the normal stuff. But, like, how did you feel about London saying, oh, because then Dahlia says, I'm so sorry, and if there's anything, like, I can do at any point during filming, please let me know. And London's like, it's not your problem, and I don't want to be your queer charity case. How did you feel about that?
I identified with it.
Yeah?
Because, like, I've definitely had times where I feel like somebody's queer charity case. Like, I am their token queer friend. And it's like, you can stand up for me if you want, but, like, you're not getting, like, brown. Like, I appreciate that you're doing it. And I really like that you're doing it because I'm glad to see that you're, like, a legitimate ally.
Sure.
But also, like, I'm not a charity. It's really hard to put into words.
That makes sense.
Like, because, like, it's not every person that stands up for you, right? Like, frankly, I want more people to stand up and be knowledgeable so that they can share the thing, because I also don't want to be the queer token person. That order felt wrong. The token queer person that has to explain everything to people. So, like, I love when allies are, like, knowledgeable. So, like, I'm not the one who has to say something. But also, it's such a murky...
Yeah, I guess I had mixed feelings about it because on the one hand, I completely understand getting to a point in life where you're like offering to do something, you know, completely non-specific in the future and then not actually showing up would get really fucking old.
I think what it really is what makes me feel like a queer charity case is when it's very clear that this person is standing up for me as a queer person, but I am just that to them. It's not that I'm a person, it's that I'm queer. That's when I start having issues. Because, like, I'm a human being. Like, be it, like, the many different flavors of queer that I am. Whether it's gender, sexual orientation, romantic orientation. Because, boy, they're all there.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more than that. You know, like, that's an important part of my identity. It's an important part of who I am as a person. But ultimately... if all that matters to you is that I'm a queer person, I have problems with that.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that completely
that's the
makes sense. Like, are you interested in me because I am a novelty, or are you interested in me because I'm a person you would enjoy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, especially because,
sense.
like, I'm not the world's biggest asshole. Like, I understand standing up for somebody because somebody's being queer-phobic of some kind. And doing it just because they're queer, but it's because there's also not a single other redeeming part about them, right? Because newsflash, there are really shitty queer people out there. And yes, you should be, like, supporting queer people, and unfortunately that means that you're also supporting that fucking asshole. So, like, feel free for them to be your queer charity case, but, like, I like to think that I have a redeeming quality, at least one. you know?
Yeah. You've got a couple. You know what I mean?
At least a few. Anyway, yeah. So, like,
Okay.
I understand why you were conflicted, though. It's a conflicting. It's murky. It's a big gray area, and it also depends. It's also person to person, right? So,
well, and I think that's why it rubbed me a little bit wrong because I'm not queer presenting.
Yes.
Like, I'm not as queer presenting as you. I'm not as queer presenting as a lot of other people. And because I'm married to a man, people automatically assume that I'm straight. And so looking at somebody who looks like Dahlia or looks like me and being like, I don't want to be your fucking queer charity case is assuming something about me that you have no experience with.
Yeah.
And then my other thing is that right after this, Dahlia's like, well, it's not that. It's that I have a trans brother and they started transitioning a couple of years ago. And so I have like firsthand experience with this particular thing. And on the one hand, I get why that would be an asset, but I also don't think that their defense should be more legitimate than somebody who doesn't have a trans brother or a trans family member or like a black friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't need to tell you I have a black friend in order to tell someone they're racist.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. I don't know.
Interestingly, what tripped me up in this scene was her telling somebody that she barely knows that her brother is trans. And I had to canonize in my head that Hank is very open about the fact that they're trans. But like, obviously I'm not naming names, but like I have quite a few friends who are trans or like within the trans umbrella of some flavor. And some of them are very open and out about it. And some of them, they pass really well and they don't want anybody to know, which is totally fair. That's totally fair. The only reason I know is because I knew them before transitioning. That's what tripped me up. So I had to canonize that Hank was like openly trans.
Yeah.
Which is never explicitly stated in text.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Which I really hope that Hank gets a book. I want Hank to have a book. And I
thought Hank was going to be book 2.
I was hoping Hank was going to be book 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not upset about Ben, you know?
Okay, wait. I'm so sorry. I had a really quick thought when you talked about being openly trans or not. And I just don't want to miss it. But one of the things I loved the most about this book is that Dahlia's physical body parts were explicitly described and London's were not. It was incredible.
It is only stated one time in text clearly what London's birth gender was. It was only stated explicitly one time in text. I guess that's not true. It's stated well, you know, we don't need to touch on it then.
It's stated implicitly quite a bit.
Well, it is stated really because London comments about how they just thought that they were a weird straight girl growing up. And then it's also commented on when they have a conversation with their dad. And he's like, so like what? Are you a lesbian now? And stuff like that. So like it's really only twice in this book that it's explicit. And
maybe 3 times because the mom says the dad really likes talking about his girls.
My girls. Yeah. So 3 times. Yeah. It was wonderful.
I loved it because I fucking loved it on principle because unless you're really comfortable with, you know, being out or like not out, but like unless you're really comfortable or it's just taken as, you know, it's just assumed because of your presentation, nobody has a right to know what you look like under your clothes unless you want them to.
Because guess what? It doesn't fucking affect you. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yes. And trans people deal with that all the fucking time.
And then one other thing that was really fucking beautiful was the first time that they have sex in this book. And I wish this is not just for people who are trans, right? I wish this was a question that everybody asked everybody, regardless of gender, regardless, like whatever. Is Dahlia before she just jumps right in and says, are there any parts of you that you don't want me to touch?
Yeah.
And it was
or like refer to.
It was really, you know that this is like a beautiful thing about Dahlia. This is just who she is as a person. She's just very thoughtful because she's never been with anybody but a man.
Right.
Ever. Her first kiss, her first time having sex, like she's never been with anybody except for him. And the fact that without having had a queer person or a trans person in her past be like, I don't want, like, without a history.
Without an explicitly sexual history.
Yes, that would have made this something that
education.
Exactly. Those are the words I was looking for. It was just really beautiful. This book is just so thoughtful when it comes to gender.
Y'all, it is so thoughtful that, like, at one point, somebody misgenders another person in dialogue, and it's in Dahlia's head, and it says, like, something, they, whatever, except she didn't say they. Like, she doesn't even say it in the person's actual text. And I fucking loved it. Sorry, everybody. I loved it. Okay.
This was really wonderful because I've definitely, like, I'm not going to say that I've read flops when it comes to non-binary characters, but I've read flops. You know what I mean?
There's a clumsy book in every subgenre or about anything.
Exactly. And, like, to the point where, like, that's not, I don't have that book in my tag for non-binary because I was like, this is not something, if somebody's looking for a character that's non-binary in a book, I don't even want, because, like, there's plenty of books in my tags that, like, I didn't really like the book, right? But if somebody is looking for that thing, maybe they will. And that one I was like, I'm not even willing to put it. And, like, I'm not going to, like, shit on the book. I enjoyed the book, but, like, it's not.
No, it's not something you want to recommend because it doesn't do the thing you want it to do well.
Justice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, they keep having these talks, and then Dahlia finally is like, bye. I'm sorry for fucking up your whole night. I recognize I just did that, and so I'm gonna fuck off now. And London's like, okay, question mark.
She just rolls in like a hurricane and rolls right back, causes a lot of destruction, and then rolls right back out. I hope you have Dahlia insurance, London, already, because if not, that premium's about to go up.
For sure. Yeah. Hey, HBs. There is a must-read romantic historical fantasy novel coming out this month. It's called A Rose by Any Other Name by Mary McMine. And in a starred review, Booklist said it was a fascinating fictional exposé with a touch of mysticism and an LGBTQ twist. From the author of the Book of Gothel comes the lush, magical story behind Shakespeare's sonnets, as told by one of his most famous subjects, the incendiary and mysterious Dark Lady. Here's the description. England, 1591. Rose Ruchet's passion for life runs deep. She loves mead and music, meddles with astrology, and laughs at her mother's warnings to guard her reputation. When Rose's father dies and a noble accuses her and her dear friend Cecily of witchcraft, they flee to the household of respected alchemists in London. But as their bond deepens, their sanctuary begins to feel more like a cage. To escape, they turn to the occult, secretly casting charms and selling astrological advice in the hopes of building a life together. This thriving underground business leads Rose to fair young noble Henry and playwright Will Shakespeare. And so begins a brief, tempestuous, and powerful romance, one filled with secret longings and deep betrayals. In this world of dazzling masks and decadent feasts, where the stars decide futures, Rose will write her own fate instead. In a starred review, Publishers Weekly said, "There's a delightfully impish heroine, a tempestuous erotic connection. Rose's secret romantic devotion to Cecily forms the central love story, but her sensual enthusiasm for and emotional resonance with Will also shines." Y'all, I just finished this audiobook, and I have to say how much I absolutely loved it. The tone was exactly what I wanted from a book like this. If you haven't picked it up yet, you can get it wherever you buy books right now. I'll put a link in the show notes. I mean, you get 2 steamy love stories with a sapphic HEA. What could be better?
So we find out that Dahlia learned to cook because the point of Chef Special is that it is amateur cooks, right? Like, these are not professional chefs or anything like that. So she learned to cook as an escape from her marriage. It helped her find herself. It helped her find peace. She was with a man, and I'll just give you the quick details on that marriage that we learned throughout the book. She was what was his name? David, maybe?
David, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she started dating David when she was in high school. First person she kissed. First person that she had sex. Oh, is he the only person?
Only.
Yeah. So he's the only person. They got engaged when she was halfway through college. They got married right after she graduated. Mm-hmm. And this was really, I fucking loved this aspect of the book, is she and her character specifically. She wanted kids because she was essentially following the typical American standard for a family, right? You get your degree, you get married, and now we're thinking about kids. Yeah. David wants kids before he's 30, and she she starts to realize, I don't want kids. And it caused a lot of grief in their relationship until they ended up getting a divorce.
Yeah, because David is working under the definitions that they decided on when they were 17.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't really had the conversation since she was around 17. And yeah, you think a lot of things when you're 17 that once you get out in the world, you're like, oh God, no, absolutely not. That's bananas. I would never do that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how she feels about kids. She's like, I might someday, but he was very like, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, you do this. And then right now we're at the kids stage. So let's do it.
He's hitting all of the white picket fence American ideals for having a family, basically.
Yeah.
And so she's in a state of transition right now, trying to fit, like, she knows that what she had, she didn't want anymore, but she doesn't really know where she's going from here. And then we have a bunch of, like, I don't even know what, like, we have to motor, but there's so many cute like I can't stop for all of them.
Well, no, so, like, this is, what I liked about this book, too, is that it's set in a cooking challenge, but a lot of the book happens outside of the cooking challenge because they're all staying in the same hotel. So we'll see, like, you know, different people going up against each other, and we get some of the framework of the show, and we get a little bit of talk about cooking, but it's not really, really heavy-handed.
I mean, it was heavy-handed enough that I was hungry as fuck reading this book.
Yeah. But what we find out is that she's not professionally trained at all, and she mostly taught herself via YouTube videos while she was like
years.
Yeah, like down in the dumps. And so when London finds this out, because London's family is very, very well off, and they had a nanny, and so they learned to cook from their nanny from childhood. So it's a really interesting thing because at the end of the show, the winner gets $100,000. And they're coming to it from very different places because, like, London at home drives a Tesla and, like, they're fine, right?
Also has a rental car for this entire trip that their mom is paying, their
Which
parents
is like
are paying
6 weeks.
for. Yeah, I was like,
holy God.
That's at least $10,000.
I don't even want to calculate. I can't even think about it, how much that would be. So, yeah, they're, like, very well off, and they want to win and then create a nonprofit that supports queer youth in and around Nashville where they live. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Dahlia is like, I quit my job to come here because I wanted to prove to myself I was, like, good at something by myself. And I just don't super know how I'm going to pay rent next month, you know?
And I also have so many student loans. Yeah.
Yeah. And we find this out, like, you know, in between cooking challenges and stuff. But the one thing I do want to say is that the very first one, and maybe the only one that Dahlia wins, is this fish challenge where they have to gut and fillet a fish and then prepare it. Mm-hmm. And while this is happening, because she's right in front of London, and she, like, gets hers done immediately. She has a swordfish, and she's like, bada bing, bada boom, slice, it's done. Sliss. And then she's helping, then she's helping her table mate with this catfish. And after they've, like, you know, decapitated it or whatever, she's, like, you know, doing catfish impressions with, like, the whiskers and stuff. Uh-huh. Like, she's just up there playing. And London finds the whole thing very charming, and also has a competency boner. And boy, do they cut the shit out of their hand. And then Dahlia immediately is just, like, right there. She's got her apron all around this cut, and one of the hosts comes over and they're like, stop doing that. You're going to ruin your beautiful yellow apron. And she's like, what? Whatever, man. Like, that doesn't matter. Uh-huh. And then it's so cute.
Yeah, because, like, from get-go, London is into Dahlia. Like, that's why they're finding Dahlia so distracting. Every time their skin touches, they get, like, flutters. Like, it's a whole thing.
That's why their hair was so irritating at first. Or her hair was so irritating at first.
It's a big swoon. London is such a huge swoon. And so we also find out that London came out as non-binary 3 years ago. So they're 26 years old. They came out at 23. And they haven't been with anybody or dated since they came out. And that's important for later times.
Yes. Should we go to the bar mitzvah?
Yes. So this is their first real world challenge, and they are at a bar mitzvah. And oh my God, fuck that guy. There's a dude
that guy.
who, what's his name? Jeremy? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Jeffrey. And he is the one who is put in charge of their little group, because there's two groups, and they each have to do, like, an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. And even though she's the fish queen, he's like, you're on hummus, you're on appetizers. And she's like, well, fine, fuck you. I'm going to make the best goddamn hummus I've ever made.
And London is like, I'm sorry, record scratch. She just won fish stuff. Like, we're preparing salmon for the entree. What are we doing here? And he's like, well, she's also the one who tripped and fell on her face in front of everybody. So, like, no, we're not doing that. And then Jeffrey decides that London is going to be desserts. So they go off to, like, the very back table, which I thought was hilarious, because in the book it's like they go off to the back tables as if they're, like, claiming the most rear seats in a bus. You know, like when you're a cool kid and you're like, oh, I gotta be way at the back of the bus. I was never at the way back of the bus ever in my life.
I also didn't find it comfy. I liked being right where the shocks were, so that, like, I had the smoothest ride, because I'm a bus napper. I'm a bus napper for sure.
For sure.
So, like, I want the smoothest ride possible, so I can just knock my head up against that window and just, like, honk, me.
Yeah.
Me.
So they end up at the table together, and as they're working, Jeffrey's coming over to, like, micromanage, and London starts being like, well, we've got a lot of tools here that I bet we could torture him with if we really wanted to. And so then they start this game about how to torture Jeffrey with, like, different foodstuffs that they have around. And meanwhile, they just naturally start helping each other with the other one's dishes without even really thinking about it. And they're, like, standing so close. We don't know this yet, but they're, like, standing so close, we find out later when somebody watches the show.
And then they end up getting fussed because apparently they're mic'd, and so the producers and judges can hear everything that they're saying. They're like, what if we just, like, took nuts to his nutsack? Just all sorts of fucked up stuff, and it's adorable. And then, of course, the fish, they end up losing that real world challenge because the other people completely fucked up the salmon. It's overcooked and rubbery, which, like, been there, done that. And then they, on the bus ride home, London's like, I had a really good time cooking with you. We work really well together. And Dahlia's like, yeah, because she's just a little bright ray of sunshine. So then we zippy zap, and we have a scene where Lizzie is basically trying to talk to Dahlia and being like, I see that you're getting really close to London.
I'm just concerned.
And Dahlia, queen, looks her dead in the face, because they're on a bus somewhere else at this point, and she looks her dead in the face and is basically like, absolutely fuck off with that misgendering bullshit. And this is when we find out that Dahlia is also queer. So she has only ever been with David, but she realized in college, probably like sometime in college, I think she said, that she's queer. And can I just say, as somebody who like, my sexual orientation is queer. People are like, so like, what do you mean? Pansexual? And I'm like, no, queer.
Queer.
Bisexual? Yeah. Queer.
Right.
Because people so desperately want a label to be able to stick you in a box. And I'm like, okay, the box is queer. Like,
meanwhile, if they're straight, they never have to confront these questions at all.
It's just always so interesting because they're like, well, where are you on the Kinsey scale? And I'm like, Kinsey scale is not great because it's a line spectrum.
It's a binary.
I'm queer. I don't know how else to explain it to you. Like, the closest thing would be blank, but that label doesn't fit. And so, like, I don't know what to tell you. It's queer. Like, I'm queer. My romance orientation is queer. My gender is queer. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Like,
and I don't know why I have to tell you.
And so I fucking loved that Dahlia's sexual orientation is queer.
Yeah.
It's not pansex. And, like, I love my pan and my bi.
Yeah.
Friend,
if those labels fit for those people.
And that's beautiful. But oh my God, it was, and this is a great example of just representation is really beautiful, right? I've never seen a character strictly identify as queer. And it was wonderful. So anyway, this is when we find out she's queer and blah, 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 blah. Then they're on the bus because they're headed to a farm. And then we have an absolutely hysterical, apparently, and we never find out what happened to London.
The fuck? Hey, Anita Kelly, is that a short story I can get by signing up for your newsletter? Let a bitch know.
Absolutely. Anita Kelly, we have questions, please. Or just, like, DM us on Instagram or,
if
like,
you want, our DMs are open to you.
podcast@gmail.com. I might, you know what? I might message her. I might message her and be like, hey, I have a question. I'll report back. So anyway, we have this hilarious scene because London is terrified of cows. And they're like, they're dangerous. They're dangerous. And Dahlia's like, no, they're adorable. Look, I'm naming them. This one's Margaret. That one's Maisie. And London's like, you're a lunatic. And then London's the first one up to milk a cow. And they accidentally squirt milk all over their crotch. And then the cow takes a big old dump. And Dahlia cannot keep her shit together. She is cackling on the floor of this barn.
Yeah.
And London's just like, all of my feelings towards cows have been
vindicated,
amplified by this situation.
And we get one tiny crumb. They're like, you get drunk with your cousin one time. What happened there? I ask everyone. I ask you, Anita Kelly, specifically.
You know what? I am adding Ask Anita Kelly about the cow to my to-do list.
Please. Because it's hilarious. They get drunk later on, and Dahlia is like, I can't believe I got you drunk, and I still didn't get the cow story out of you. This is bullshit. And everyone agreed. As reader, I agreed.
It's all bullshit. Oh, man. It was hilarious. Oh, gosh. So then we zippy zap, and London runs into Dahlia in the hotel lobby when they go to get snacks, and they realize that Dahlia has been crying, and they get snacks together, and then London looks Dahlia dead in the face and goes, there's a wedding in the hotel. Let's crash it.
Yeah.
To cheer Dahlia
crash
up.
It with me? And Dahlia's like, have you done this before? And London's like, no, but there's always a first time, right? Like, let's do this.
And this is so out of character.
Oh, my God. It's so out of character, and it's from London's point of view, and they are baffled as to why they want to bend over backwards to make sure Dahlia feels better. They're like, I don't know. And then
because you have a crush, London.
Right? Dahlia's like, I mean, I have this dress. And London's like, I wonder, like, what could possibly be the reason that she's, like, kind of questioning this dress. Like, what could it be? And it's a hot dress is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's like a V down to your navel, little black number. And it's fantastic. And London can only look at it for a split second before having to turn around and do something else.
Mm-hmm. So they get into this. Also, Dahlia does really love London's outfit, which I agree with. London is wearing a pink bow tie, a shirt with giraffes all over it, and black jeans. And they look dapper as fuck. And so they go hilariously. London is wearing a shirt.
They call it a graphic tee.
But then it's referenced later.
I know, but I just want to make sure that it's not like cartoon giraffes on the front. You know what I mean?
No,
I just want listener to know. It's like a cool giraffe shirt.
I imagined it was a short sleeve because it's mentioned as a button down. And I was imagining like a short sleeve button down with like stylized giraffes on it. Of note, hilariously to me. So I think, God, this is going deep into like way back in like super Hulock Tumblr times. There's a scene from... Do you know what Super Hulock is?
I have no idea most of the time when you talk about Tumblr, this millennial who had dial-up and three TV stations has no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, we're not going into... We don't... I don't need to explain. So, there's
the important listener knows.
There is a scene from... I think it's a Doctor Who episode, and I think it's David Tennant as the Doctor, where it's like I seem to vaguely remember it being called like the giraffe dance, maybe, or something like that. And it's where he's like going around a dance floor and he's like just waving, like he's going in circles, like, and his arms are going back and forth like that. And I vaguely remember it being like something giraffe related, right? Which is why I clocked that. This shirt had giraffes on it because that's how I imagine London dancing when London finally gets on the dance floor, because they originally don't want to dance. Dahlia's like, come dance with me. And they're like, absolutely not. And then they have enough bourbon that they're like, okay, actually, I do kind of want to go dance with her.
I could. If it makes her happy, sure.
And she helps them dance. Very important. There's hands on hips.
Oh, gosh.
Some like movement, and it's adorable. Yeah. And then it's the end of the night. The second to last song comes on. It's a slow dance, and Dahlia saves London because London's like, oh, fuck, what do we do? And Dahlia is like, the bar's unintended. And they go steal each a bottle of wine. And then they go out to the courtyard, and they're just drinking because she's a little Girl Scout and has a Swiss Army knife with a bottle opener on it. And they're like...
And then London is the smoothest, coolest date in the whole wide world, and looks over at this drunk bitch and says, so you're divorced, huh? She's like, yeah. And poor London, they're like, I thought she would do like a quippy response and be like, life's a bitch or whatever. But instead, she like tells London a lot, like the whole story that Sabrina told you earlier, with more about like how sex got really sad because she kept on feeling like her body was just a vessel, and like she felt like she had to apologize to David for not letting his sperm implant in one of her eggs and stuff.
Literally that's like stated on page, almost exactly like
I loved
that.
it.
I did too.
Right. And then she's like getting really sad and basically telling London like how lost she feels and how even like she was so miserable with David because they weren't doing things like traveling and whatever. But since the divorce, she lives in the same shitty town. She has the same shitty job. She hasn't gone anywhere or done anything. And
she's been in limbo.
She's just like... Yeah, she's like, I ruined this person's entire fucking life and I haven't even done anything to make myself happy, basically, you know?
So London feels like shit because they made her cry. And then they both switch topics, and now they're talking about food. They have this is very important for later in the book. They have a whole conversation about how much London loves barbecue. And then Dahlia asks them what their favorite sad food is. And London
what's your comfort food?
Yeah, and London says roasted Brussels sprouts. And she's like, unacceptable.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not.
What the fuck is your issue?
Mine is Rice Krispie treats. You're a monster, basically.
Right.
So then they're about to they head upstairs and she stands up and suddenly realizes, which been there, done this. She was fine, and then she stood up and went, I'm drunk.
I'm Hammertown, turns out.
Yeah. And so they're leaning on, she's leaning on London. And they're helping her. They run into Barbara, who's a grandma contestant on the show. And she, oh my God, I felt this was a Dahlia moment. She goes up and sits down next to Barbara and leans on her. And she's an adorable little hot mess. And then she's like, I wish you could be my mom, one that actually likes me. And both
and Barbara's like, oh, we have nope. Oh, it's that time of night, is it? I think you need to go to bed because I am a very wise Iowa grandmother. And before Dahlia does all of this, I just loved this because and London clocks it, which is, what makes it extra special. But she's drunk as shit, sits down on this couch with Barbara, and she's like, oh, are you knitting that for one of your grandkids? Is it Ethan or Samuel or whatever? And Barbara's like, it's actually this other kid, but thank you so much. And London's just like, she already knows this lady's grandkids' names. And then she says you could be a mom who likes me comment. And everybody's like, what? Gotta wrap this up.
And then she makes this statement when London is getting her up to her room, and she says, I just want my life to be big, like the way your favorite song feels when you're 16. I want my life to feel like that. I want to feel big. I want to do messy, wild things I'll remember, things that are interesting. And it just was really beautiful. It was just really beautiful, this little drunk person, And London in their head is like, you are doing big.
You're
you
huge.
You quit your job to come on this show, and you are enormous.
Yeah. And this was one of the biggest indications that I used to be a Dahlia, and now I'm very much not as much. Because the moment that she was like, I want my life to feel like your favorite song does at 16, I was just like, oh, sweetie, no. Nothing feels like that. At least not sustainably. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's never going to feel like that all the time. That's not realistic at all.
You have moments.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But where everything is shiny and amazing. But that's not how people live.
Well, and I think that it's also very interesting because I agree with you. That was an old Sabrina thing, right? When I was younger, I wanted my life to be big, right? There were so many things that I wanted. I had so many dreams, all of these things. And as I've gotten older, just as with the life experience that I have, I've come to realize I like my little life.
Right. I liked the idea of those things, but I don't actually want them.
And I think it's partially because it's all you romanticize it in your head, right?
Yes.
This big life frankly, a big life, unless you are one of the lucky 0.002%, takes a lot of fucking work. And I like my little life. I like that I go on trips roughly once or twice a year, and sometimes they're really big trips, but it's still just kind of a blip in my life. And then for the most part, I just spend my time relaxing with my dogs and talking to my friends. And I don't need those gigantic things that I used to think would make me happy. Like I kind of like a little life, you know? I like not feeling like that song made me feel at 16, because let me tell you, I was an emotional, depressed asshole at 16.
Because what you don't realize at 16, or like, you know, whatever that stage is where everything is glowy and, you know, futury and everything, what you don't realize is that, the song makes you feel all fizzy in the moment. But if you actually look at the song, there's a really good chance it's just all angst, you know? It's all angst with great vibes. And like that's really how it is. Like there are so many people who have yachts and go on trips all the time and spend oodles of money, and they're fucking miserable.
You could not pay me enough to live a life that existed primarily of the feeling the songs I listened to at 16 made me feel.
Absolutely
you could not pay me enough.
That might be actual hell.
I would rather be destitute.
That might be the bad place. You know what I mean?
That is the bad place. The good place is tea and an oil lamp and knitting with my dogs while I read a book, you know?
A massage every once in a while. Like twice a year maybe, you know?
Yeah. Like a fucking sushi boat as a treat for your birthday.
Sure. Yeah. It's the teeny tiny moment where I get to see my kids experience something for the first time.
The good place is being delighted by a tab on a can saying hi you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's the little happies.
And like being able to go to the grocery store and not have paparazzi following you around. That's a fucking nightmare.
Oh my God.
I don't want to be a rock star. That's a fucking nightmare.
Absolutely not. No, I'm not interested. Paparazzi, frankly, Mel, can you imagine?
We would quit.
The podcast would be over if we ended up with paparazzi.
No, absolutely not.
We'd be done. We like having listeners come up and be like, hey, I recognize you. We do not. But
if Us Magazine is involved, fuck
not interested.
That noise.
Not interested.
Not even close.
Yeah, I would be okay with being in 15 podcasts that you should check out. Yeah. That's on like page 42. I'd be okay with that. But like, if I end up on the cover of a magazine, I have flown too close to the sun, and I need to back the fuck off because I don't want it.
If I end up on the cover of a magazine, it's going to be with one of those pictures where I roll out of bed and go to the grocery store and people are wondering if I've fallen off the wagon. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only scenario. Or, like, fucking beach pictures with, like, oh, where did these rolls come from? And why is it all business? Like, is she pregnant? They said to Kelly Clarkson all the time, like, get out of here. I do not want this.
That's accurate. So she is back at her room, and this was just really important to me because she starts to go into her room, and then she closes the door, but then she pulls it back open, and she looks back at London, and she's like, I like making you laugh. Your eyes disappear in your face and does this thing, and then she makes like a movement with her hand, and London has no idea what she means by it.
No.
But they realize that they don't need to understand what she's trying to say because they're just happy that their face makes her face look like that. And then, of course, we get the number exchange because London is like, I'm going to give you my number. And then they text themselves so that they can check on her the next morning to make sure that she isn't dead from alcohol poisoning.
You're Hammertown, ma'am. We got to make sure everything's okay. And then one of the truest sentences that ever has been written in a book is that the next day, Dahlia wakes up with the alcohol blues.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And so she doesn't remember all of the night before, but like it keeps coming back.
And she's
like
horrified. She's certain that all of her snippets of memory are like the prelude to the most embarrassing experience she'll ever have in her life.
She has some real bad anxiety, is what she has.
Absolutely.
And she can't stop thinking about London and how cute they were and thoughtful and what a good listener as her memories are coming back from the evening before. And then she can imagine London winning at the end, but she cannot see herself in her own dream of this. And it made me so sad.
And then she runs into Barbara again. Mm-hmm. And Barbara is like, hey, girl, I'm glad that you're doing okay. And
you're alive.
You know, whatever. And she was like, but you were very cute. Like, you and London were very cute last night. You looked a treat together. And she's like, oh, yeah. And says, like, they're really good friends or whatever. And she's like, well, I mean, the show's gonna start airing pretty soon. And I'm pretty sure that every single viewer is gonna think the same thing that me and all the rest of the cast and crew thinks, which is that London looks at you in a way to where they don't want to be like Instagram friends only.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know? Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, like she's very taken aback, but at the same time, like something clicks in her. She's like, oh shit, I didn't even think of this like as a possibility. But if London's attracted to me, it gets her horny wheels turning. And now,
Dahlia,
yeah.
From here, Dahlia proceeds to avoid the fuck out of London for the rest of the weekend, spends all of her money on ride shares to go explore Los Angeles.
Good God.
Uh-huh.
And then, so London's kind of freaking out about it. And they end up like, you know, London
breaking the ice with the worst Scottish accent ever.
Chap. Oh, cheese on toast.
Because they're making fun of Tanner Tavish, who's one of the judges, and so they do the world's worst Scottish accent, and like a bunch of
a Cockney accent for Scottish,
and then they're like, and there's no way that it's real anyway. Tanner's definitely a liar, and I was like,
sure, he's Egypt. They say it's pretty good. Well, and then so the next important thing that happens, I think, is that all of them are gearing up for the show to air. She gets an email from her ex-husband at one point being like, I just wanted you to, because her ex-husband like he's a good person. You know, they just didn't want the same things. That's all.
Yeah.
They just got married too young.
I love that he wasn't a villain in this book.
Same.
Because it would have been so easy to make him a villain.
Yeah, absolutely. But he emails her and he's just like, I don't want you to hear this from anybody else. I'm dating this girl from our hometown. I hope you're doing really well on the show and don't feel like you have to respond to this. Okay, thanks, bye. Mm-hmm. And then meanwhile, London is talking to their sister, their twin sister, Julie. And they're like, I have to bite the bullet and call our dad and tell him that I'm going to be out as non-binary on the show. Mm-hmm. And Julie's like, yeah, I really think you should, you know, probably, like, he should know before mom has her giant watch party. That would be good, I think. And London ends up not calling him, but texting instead. And then all they get back from him is okay. Just those two letters.
So we find out that when London came out, their dad was not cool with it, right? So they have, he has refused to use the correct pronouns on purpose for the last 3 years.
The dad keeps saying that, like, it's a phase. It's a phase, and, like, you just want to be different, and you'll come to your senses at some point.
Yeah, and this was, so I just highlighted this quote because this is where we get a really good, this is where we get our probably most intense internal look from London into their own gender, right?
Yeah.
And their journey through all of that. And it hit, it hit me really hard because, like, I identify as genderqueer, right? And so, like, that's under the transgender umbrella because the transgender umbrella is just anybody who does not identify with their gender and their sex at birth. Don't.
That's something that this book taught me, actually, because I didn't realize that non-binary was under the same trans umbrella. I didn't realize they were considered like a version of trans, right? Yeah. I didn't realize that.
And London says they had settled on non-binary feeling right for them, even though they knew others like them had their own names that felt right to their own experiences. And that was comforting too. That each person could choose what brought them closest to belonging, the power in that. Knowing that one day people might discover even better words for it. That there was only ever freedom in continuing to find new names for who we were, who we could be. And that hit me really hard because there's, even within the queer community, a lot of people have a lot of pushback when new terms are introduced. Because it's like, well, what was wrong with the old terms? Like, why you have to go so specific? Like, because like gray romantic, demi-romantic, demisexual, sapiosexual, like all of these terms. And those are just like some of the more common ones because they get really, really specific, right?
Yeah.
So this just hit me really hard specifically because I use the term queer for my sexual orientation. I use the term genderqueer for my gender orientation because none of the terms that I've found
feel
fit.
Right. Yeah.
They just don't fit quite right. Like there's a lot of them that are close.
Right.
But it's just not quite right. And so it's cool to think that maybe someday I'm not going to do it. I don't care enough to do it. I'm fine with queer and genderqueer. But it's cool to think that there might be somebody else out there that one day is like, you know what? I want a term that describes this exact thing. And it's the exact way I feel. And it's probably the exact way that other people out there feel, just statistically.
Right.
Because that's how you find community, right? When you have these super specific things. Mm-hmm.
You don't feel like you're the only one. And like, if they can do that, then the next person down the line who feels a similar way doesn't have to do all of that work. If we just normalize it, then they can adopt that as well.
Well, and if you're a part of the queer community and you don't like super duper specific terms, you don't have to use them.
No.
You can literally just be gay. You can literally just be bisexual. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to dive in there.
It doesn't impact you at all.
Oh,
you can just be queer.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't want to use any specific term at all, you can just be queer. You can just be queer. It's fine. Oh,
or you can just say it's none of your fucking business.
That too. That is
that's
perfectly
an answer
valid.
that people should be accepting.
Because guess what? The only reason that it should matter is whether or not you're interested in that person. That's when it starts to matter.
Right.
Anyway, it was just that specific passage.
It was beautiful.
Was really beautiful.
Well, and especially since the first episode comes out, and there's like a long weekend after that. They don't have to be on set the next day. The cast is, on their own. And so London reads the comments. They have their social media on. And on the one hand, they are connecting with their community because one of the reasons that they figured out they were non-binary is because of their internet life, the community they found on the internet, on social media. And so having this like deluge of, trolls and all the bullshit is especially fucking hard.
Well, because they're the first person on, this is season 8 of Chef's Special, and they're the first out queer person. At the very least, the first out non-binary person.
Yeah, definitely the very first non-binary person, for sure.
And like probably
I imagine they're the very first they,
out,
them pronouns.
Yeah, and the first person who's probably out, it sounded like as out as any form of trans, right?
Right.
Like,
definitely.
Which is a big deal. Somebody's got to be the first.
Yeah.
And they're going to be talked about. So Dahlia wakes London up Friday morning because Dahlia is a morning person. London is not, as we learn throughout the book. And they are like, do you want to go to the beach? We can rent a car. And this is when we find out that London has rented a car and has had a rental for this entire time. And they go driving. She drives, and they're just quiet in the passenger seat. And she is like, let's go to the beach, and gets to the beach, but then decides that she doesn't want to be at that beach, and so just starts driving up the PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, for those of you not Californians.
Right. And London looks over at one point, and she's just like beaming behind the wheel. And they're like, hey, you seem really happy. And she's like, turns out I love LA traffic and like how crazy people drive. It's, it's like really fun. And she thought that they were like sleeping, but it turns out they've just been stewing.
Yeah. Also, I was a Dahlia in this moment. I fucking love driving in Southern California. Part of it's because that's where I was born and raised. It's where I learned to drive. But like, oh my God, California freeways and stuff are just such a joy to drive on. So anyway, they get to this beach in the middle of nobody's there, right? It is
Malibu.
It's a cliffside beach with just a little turnoff and stairs down to the bottom of down to the sand. And listener, if you have never been to a Southern California beach like this, they are truly magical. Like, it's incredible. It's not a beach that you're necessarily going to want to hang out on for hours and hours and hours, because guess what? I would bet you money that this specific beach, when the tide is in, there's no sand. It is butted up against that cliff. Yeah. So they are looking out over the water. Dahlia's hair is going crazy in the wind. And London, when they look over, is like, Dahlia, what are you doing? And then like tries to tame her hair, and now their hands are all up in her hair and they can see her face and she's grinning ear to ear. And then she leans forward and kisses London.
And like it takes a minute, but then London starts kissing her back.
And then this was a long hair mood in the wind, because London pulls back coughing because they got hair in their mouth, and Dahlia is putting it up, and London is sad because they think the kiss is over and the moment is past. But then guess what? Dahlia gets her hair up, and now it's makeout town again.
Dahlia's rearing to go. But then London stops, and they're like, okay, this is probably a bad idea. We don't know what's going to happen after the show. And like, are you straight? Because like I'm very mask presenting. And so they're worried that
she's experimenting, essentially.
Yeah, or fetishizing them.
Yes, especially when because they now know that David is the only, like, now they have confirmation that she's queer, but they also have confirmation that she's only ever been with him. And like we said earlier, they haven't been with anybody since they came out as non-binary. And so whoever they're with for the first time, it's going to mean something.
Yes.
Right?
And like it can't be just like your foray onto the gay train or whatever,
Yeah,
like you can't.
Basically.
This can't be your little vacation spot. Not cool.
That's exactly it.
And Dahlia's like, no, I've known since college that I'm queer. And I'm like, I'm sorry I didn't explicitly tell you that before I kissed you, I guess. And then London's like, but it's a bad idea in general.
Well, because specifically in their head, London thinks to themselves, I can't, they wanted to say, because even after that one kiss, I don't know if I can stand to be around you anymore, because if you kiss me again, I will literally never be able to stop. I will take you right on this beach. I will consume you until I know every inch of you. Once I start with you, I won't be able to stop. I need you in a way that can't be temporary. So they're realizing...
This is in their head, though. This is not out loud to Dahlia, if only. Because Dahlia feels like very rejected. She's like, uh-oh, I fucked everything up.
Yeah,
oh, no.
if this had been an out loud monologue, this would have been a much shorter book. So Dahlia asks if they can still be friends, and London is like, yeah, sure. And then she's like, okay, I want to do something. And then she does fully strip down to her knickers and go jump into the ocean.
You can close your eyes. And London's like, what? And then she's just naked. She's just got bra and panties on. Sorry.
And then London is speechless because when Dahlia gets out of the water, she's walking up, she's in her underwear, she's wet as hell. It's scrambling their brain. And they think that Dahlia has never looked more kissable, which is saying something, because Dahlia is always looking pretty kissable. And it's adorable. And
like, isn't it hilarious that this is moments after you told them not to kiss you? Like, God damn it.
I don't remember why I said we couldn't kiss.
Yeah.
Which, like, that's a mood. I've done that before, where like you shut something down with somebody, and then like 5 minutes later, you're like,
a terrible idea. Why did I do that? Past me was dumb.
Why did I do? And like, how do you take that back? The answer is you both get really drunk and make out in the corner of the bar. But so Talia spends a little bit of time thinking about like how rejected she felt by London, but also realizing like London's right. Where do we go from here? We have completely different lives. I'm in one of those northeastern M states. They're in
it's Maryland.
Sure.
But she's also from Massachusetts. Her family lives in Massachusetts.
Yep. And then also there is a Maine up there. It's not in this book, but there is another M state up there in that northeast.
There is another one.
Uh-huh.
You're right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is that all of them? Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland.
On the East Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's
on
all
the East
of
Coast.
them. Yeah, my brain kept going Montana, and I was like, that's wrong. That's over near the... That's the other side of the country.
Missouri?
Missouri, Minnesota, Michigan. We have a lot of M states in the U.S.
We do. We do. Look at that.
Interesting. But yeah, so like, how can this possibly work? I live in Maryland, even though I hate my life and would be totally down with leaving Maryland. The answer's so obvious, Dahlia.
This was the dumbest conflict in the world. Dahlia, you hate where you live. You don't have a job. You can move literally anywhere.
And I think it would have been more understandable if she was somebody who liked a little life, like she liked comfort and safety and where she had always been. So like I could understand if she wasn't somebody who wanted to have all of these experiences that she didn't have when she was younger and like traveling and all of the so like in this scenario I'm like, Dahlia, you're a free spirit. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
No, the only way this conflict makes sense is if Dahlia says, I can't afford to move. Which that makes sense.
She didn't say it out loud, but the writing is on the wall, listener.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the next challenge, her favorite, Barbara, gets canned.
Yes.
Barbara goes home, and she's devastated about it.
And then when she goes in for her solo interview, when London goes in for their solo interview after this, they realize that the producer, Janet, knows about them and Dahlia. This is the first time it is confronted to one of our main characters that the producers know something is going on between them. So, and then London, this is such a minor note, but also the most beautiful thing in the world because I'm obsessed with this character. London hopes to get some good butch lesbian advice from Kath after their solo interview. And Kath is basically like, when you and Dahlia hugged on set, it damn near broke my heart.
Because London almost went home. They were on the chopping block. And after they were saved, she just like launched herself at them.
Yeah.
And a little spider monkey.
It was beautiful. And Kath is like, basically, take care of yourself, go after what you want kind of thing. And London
take care of yourself, but also because London specifically says she's never been with someone like me before. And Kath is like, hey, listen, take care of yourself. But if you want some unsolicited opinions, she seems like one of the good ones. So take that for what it is.
And so
London's like, that sounds like a green light.
London immediately runs to Dahlia's room. Knock, knock, knock. Dahlia opens the door, and now they're kissing again. There's a super sweet lead up with like a caress on the face and a little smooch. And London pulls away because they made a list Sunday night about Dahlia.
And all the things they don't know about her. How can they kiss her without knowing these things?
And so they're like, what's your favorite movie? And Dahlia's like, how am I supposed to pick a favorite? Especially on the spot. And then they're like, okay, this one's easier. What's your favorite song? And the entire time, Dahlia's like getting up on them and like touching
getting undressed.
Like, and like pulling off her shirt. And it's beautiful. Yeah. And then London is very aware that if they do this, they cannot be casual about this. Like, she's perfect, right? In London's eyes.
Yeah.
And then Dahlia says, I need you. And I need you to need me back. Yeah. London says, you have no idea. And then it's on, TM. And it's
on.
Great.
It's so great. So they are like laying down on the bed and London tells Dahlia, you're perfect. And Dahlia's like, no, don't, like, they go back and forth, and she's like, perfect doesn't exist. I want this to be real.
Mm-hmm.
And London's like, okay, all right, let's go. And they stand up, they strip down very, perfunctorily, just totally naked. And then they're like, oh shit, this is the first time I've been naked in front of another person since I came out as non-binary. Mm-hmm. And Dahlia sort of clucks that hesitation and sits up and is like, hey, would it help if I told you the parts of your body that I really like?
Mm-hmm.
And London's like, yeah.
And this is when I was a Dahlia, because Dahlia's real into those forearms.
Yeah.
Love a forearm. She's really into the freckles. She loves their tummy. And they're like, you mean my pooch? And she's like, oh, but it's just soft and lovely. And
No. Specifically, this is when I was a Dahlia.
Uh-huh.
Because she was like, no, it's just so like sturdy and meaty and.
Like, I thought that was about their hips. Yeah, but in general,
it's like the whole torso area. Yeah.
It was just really beautiful, and it breaks the spell of anxiety that London has fallen into, and it. Oh, God. Oh, and then.
Tell us everything, Sabrina.
So London starts, like, kissing down her body because she's naked, and London is, like, headed to oral. Mm-hmm. And Dahlia's like, no, come up and kiss me. I really want to kiss you. And London pops up and says, I was hoping to go down on you. Do you not like that? It's fine if you don't, of course. But they kiss the skin just under her earlobe. I am very good at it. And I was like, I love a cocky, like somebody who is confident in their sexual skills. I don't care what the sexual skill is. But like London is catnip to me. Anyway.
London is absolutely your catnip.
London then is delighted because they put their hand on her, like, right on her clit immediately. And Dahlia's like, oh. And London's like, did I do something wrong? And they're like, no, but you got the exact right spot immediately. And London's like, I sure did.
They rock her world.
And Dahlia comes. And then
This was the best.
She's never touched anybody with these specific genitals, and she's nervous about it. Right?
Yeah.
And London
she
sees
says,
that.
You were so good at that. What if I'm not good at touching you?
And then London shows her.
I love this.
They put her hand where it needs to go, and then they show her how to touch them, and then they come also like a freight train, and then they snuggle up and fall asleep together.
But also, like, right afterwards, they hold her hand on them for like a little bit longer than the orgasm lasts, and they have pressed their foreheads together. And the next morning when she wakes up, she's thinking about like what sex with David was like and like all the business, and this was sort of relatable because she was like I mean, it must have been exciting at some point, but toward the end it was not great because of all of these other emotional issues. And David would like come and then pull away. And she loved the fact that London came and pulled her closer during it.
Mm-hmm. God,
it was just like so.
I'm such a slut for that.
Intimate. The connection was so palpable. Yeah.
Yeah. So they wake up. They're running a little late. It's time to get on set. So they get on set, and because Barbara's gone, London gets moved to Dahlia's station. So now they're sharing a table.
Also, that producer right before that is like, both of you have sex hair. You need to get to set on time. Thank you very much. And then
there's
she's
nasty
walking away,
business like this every season. Yeah. And of course that makes Dahlia go, who on the other seasons?
Yeah.
Was it those two people? Oh, yeah. But those people were enemies. And
were these enemies to lovers?
That's when I was a Dahlia. If I knew that there'd been nasty business on the set every season, I would have red lines across my wall coming up with who it could possibly be.
And the first thing she thinks is, I have to tell London about this.
Yeah.
So now Okay, what? Yes, tell me everything.
So they're cooking, right? And this is going to be a
Oh
long
my God,
quote.
that's right.
They're cooking, and she reaches up. So, like, contestants talk, they help each other, which felt very British Bake Off to me. You would never see that on an American cooking show.
No.
But they help each other, they taste each other's things, but usually it's them putting like their own spoon and then tasting it. She takes a little bit of her coulis, her raspberry coulis, which sounded delicious, and I want it so bad.
I have no idea what a coulis is.
I don't either. Fun. But the description of it sounded amazing.
It was raspberry kind.
And I fucking love raspberry. She feeds it to London instead, and as London is tasting it,
yes,
it had felt so natural to turn to London and ask for advice this way, to bring her spoon to their mouth. She had done it without thinking. A vision swarmed into her mind. Her and London in a kitchen, a real one, not an industrial-sized one on a Burbank TV set. She pictured London's eyes on her as she pounded out fresh pasta dough, flicking flour onto their nose, bringing her wooden spoon out of her sauce to their tongue again and again for their approval. They would eat the meal fresh, standing hip to hip by the kitchen island, while they drank wine straight from the bottle like they had done in the hotel courtyard that night. Dahlia would roll her eyes while London made fun of her Sauvignon Blanc, and she would call them pretentious for their overpriced Pinot Noir. There would be a window above the sink fogged from the boiling water, and London would nuzzle the back of her neck while she did the dishes, slightly tipsy, occasionally splashing soapy water over her shoulder at them. And after the dishes were done, London would push Dahlia up onto the counter, where she would hop happily, wrapping her arms around their neck and opening her legs, and then she gets cut off from her little fantasy because London responds and says, "I wouldn't change a thing." ...
about the coulis.
And because she's in like full, and then
yes,
they have a break on set.
Yeah.
And London shoves Dahlia up against a wall in an alcove and is all assertive and all sexy and is like, "I want to know what happened in your eyes when it went glassy, because I know for a fact that you weren't thinking about what you told me you were thinking about on, like, you couldn't tell me on stage." And she covers it up by saying that it had to do with food, which is not inaccurate. And then they're like, "What about food, though? I need more information than that." And she's like, "Well, you know, what we could do with food in bed." And they're into it.
Sex.
And guess what? They decide to go to Vaughn's after they're done filming that day.
Everybody.
And let me tell you, that was the end of the chapter, and I was so
me too.
angry already. Yeah. I started angry because I knew that we weren't going to get that fucking scene. It was going to be a reference.
I was drafting a letter I would never send to Anita Kelly in my head.
I was going to bitch and complain. I was going to message you and be like, "I'm so fucking angry that we didn't get the food scene." Guess what, listener? We get the food scene, and it is incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And, like, we can't even go into it. You should just read the book. But, like, there's a nectarine involved. London is like, "Let's make a plan." And she's like, "Let's go by the seat of our pants." She's all giggly. And then, boy, they go down on her.
It's hot.
And it's wow. And then when
they lay on their stomach.
Yeah, well, she asks them, "What do you want?" And they lay on their stomach and they're like, "Just, you know, go to town on my back. Just give me a massage."
I love not your average sex in a book.
Same.
It's so refreshing. This entire book is just incredible. So after they wake up in the morning,
well, but then that does turn into
sex.
London coming. Yeah.
Yes. So they wake up in the morning, they take a super intimate shower together, and she needs some time to step back and kind of get herself figured out, right? Mm-hmm. And so she asks if they can stay in their own beds that night, and she tells London it's because they're exhausting her, which is not inaccurate.
No.
But then she realizes when they get on set, this was a mistake because today is an elimination day and tomorrow is not promised to either of us. Yeah. So Janet, they have decided to really push the romance between them on stage, right?
Because so Janet pulls Dahlia aside And she's like, hey, this Team Lizzie, Team London thing is really popping off. And we want you to lean into it a little bit today with something that's going to happen. And Dahlia's like, I'm sorry, what? Because I have been not on the internet at all this whole time. And they find out that Lizzie said some shit the first episode because London did well. And Lizzie said some shit about, like, being genderqueer or whatever, you know, whatever bullshit she was going to say. They don't actually say it in the book, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, we didn't need it.
No. And then since then, the internet has been like Team Lizzie or Team London.
Yeah. And specifically, it's Team London with Dahlia on London's side, and it's Team Lizzie with Kari on, which it doesn't matter who Kari is, just another contestant. Kari is on Lizzie's side. And so basically what they're going to do is the winners of one of the challenges, their advantage for this round is that the three of them get to choose one person to get 15 minutes less on their cake cook time, one person who is not affected, and one person who's just safe. They don't, like, they're done. They're safe this round.
They don't even have to finish the bake if they don't want to.
Yeah. So the idea was that Dahlia would fight really hard for London. Kari would fight really hard for Lizzie. And then
Janet's like, maybe think of some zingers about Lizzie, you know, so we can get some zingers in there. And Dahlia just, like, can't. It really gives her anxiety.
Well, especially because as far as she's concerned, she and London, it's still private. Even though this is splashed all over the internet, it's being filmed, blah, blah, blah. Her relationship with London, the situation that they are in, for her it is a private thing, and she does not like the feeling of being used essentially for views. And so what ends up happening is she's conflicted. She's all over the place. She can't figure out what she's doing, but she knows that she doesn't want London to go home, obviously. She doesn't want London to have the disadvantage. And what ends up happening is Ahmed gets the disadvantage. Nothing happens to London, and then Lizzie's fine. And London...
But these assholes have Kari say the disadvantage, and then they have Dahlia say the advantage. And so London and Lizzie are standing there, and he says, all right, Dahlia, who gets the advantage? And then London has to hear Lizzie come out of her mouth. And, like, that would have... I was so angry about this because I didn't realize, like, I thought that they each had a choice. You know, like, one person would choose this and the other person would choose that. And that Dahlia was choosing Lizzie just to fuck over the producers, you know? I'm so glad it wasn't that.
Yeah.
Well, because this was the compromise.
Later, when we see inside of her head, Dahlia's like, I should have fought harder for London. Like, I feel really bad about that. And meanwhile, in the moment, London is like, what the fuck? I would have fought so hard for her to get the advantage and be safe.
Yeah.
And Dahlia, she was just all over the place. And she wishes in her head later, she's like, I wish that I had just gone against what my group chose.
And
I
said
had
London
just
out
said
loud.
London's name.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing that happens in this scene, when she's talking to the producer, is she realizes there is no Team Dahlia. Like, on the production team, there's no anything. So the producer says something about, like, oh man, wouldn't it just be a narrative perfection to have a Team Lizzie, Team London final? And Dahlia's like, wait, but that just assumes that nobody else could win.
Up there.
Yeah. And the producer's like, oh, no, trying to placate her. And then they're like, you go get him, champ, basically, when that meeting ends. And so Dahlia's like, oh shit, nobody's even thinking about me as a contender. There is no Team Dahlia.
Yeah. It was really sad.
Dahlia, that's not true. London is Team Dahlia.
London is Team Dahlia.
Except for right now, because they're very confused.
Yeah. And then, so Dahlia apologizes. London forgives her. And this was just really sweet to me. So London always thinks about how Dahlia smells like coconut and peppermint. And their cake that they made is a coffee and peppermint cake, which sounds fucking delicious.
Yikes. Yeah.
And London is like, I made the cake for you. And she was like, but I don't like coffee. And they're like, yeah, I'm the coffee you're the peppermint.
You taste like peppermint.
Oh my God. So then they do go their separate ways. They sleep separately that night.
So then the next day, London's like, I really thought I was going to be the first one to break. But turns out she texted me being like, I miss you. Mm-hmm. Then they end up watching rom-coms all day and eating ice cream in bed and snuggling and stuff. And there's one point before Dahlia falls asleep where she says, I'm going to disappoint you. I disappoint everybody. And then boom, lights out. She goes to sleep. And London is like, I don't know what to do with that statement, you know?
And then this is just a comment because it's going to come back later, very importantly. Yeah. London finds out that their dad is being a big ol' asshole at home.
Oof.
About the fact that they came out live, like that they're out as non-binary on live television. So they... Oh, God. So we zippy zap to Monday. It's after the set, and they sneak back into the ballroom and slow dance to Sam Cooke. Mm-hmm. And it's adorable. And London then confesses to her about how their dad doesn't use their correct pronouns and never has. And she's super pissed. And then, importantly... suddenly, Dahlia really couldn't breathe. Yeah. Oh, God. She had known this for a while, probably. Maybe she didn't know it the last time they were out here in this courtyard, but at some point after that, maybe the first time she'd actually pressed her lips to theirs, maybe that morning in the shower after the food sex, this weekend probably, when they'd gone to bookstores and museums, and London had gotten a slight sunburn, and she'd been happier than she could ever remember being. But right now, as London took a step toward her and she could already anticipate how their lips were going to feel in a few seconds, she knew. When London had asked her a few minutes ago to tell them things, anything that bothered her, she knew they meant it, and she knew she wanted to tell them anything and everything. When London had told her about their dad, she felt an urge to protect London with her life, to battle anything that ever caused them harm, because she loved them. And she suddenly realized that she loves them. And then they go out to the courtyard, and she says to London, fuck me hard and dirty.
Right here. And then London says, only if you scream for me. Let everybody know.
And then they finger her and go up on her.
Go up on her, yeah.
And they collapse in her arm, or she collapses in their arms. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, this got me real hard. While they're cradling her, they go, Dahlia, my Dahlia.
My Dahlia. How dare.
Oh, my God.
But I do wonder, I was wondering here, because this is from Dahlia's perspective, and I can't remember the exact verbiage, but I think she said something like, they were going to get off right here. And I didn't know if she was talking about them together, or because we don't see any reciprocation, and I didn't see London
think they do reciprocate.
Yeah, I don't think she reciprocates.
Yeah.
And that happens a couple of times in this book, which I don't know that I loved, but it was okay.
Where she refers to herself as they in the third person? Because it's a third person book.
No.
Where she doesn't reciprocate.
Yeah.
Oh. I think...
It happens in the epilogue, too. And I think it does make sense for the character.
I think that this is not explicitly stated, but if we're coming at this from, like, BDSM terminology, London is definitely a pleasure top.
Interesting. Okay.
Like, I think that they don't necessarily get off, but they get enough sexual satisfaction from giving her pleasure that... Mm-hmm. Because they say that, like, yeah, because they get up at one point after a sex scene, and she's like, what about you? And they're like...
That was enough for me.
That was enough for me. It was after they woke her up with oral, by the way.
Yeah, hot.
So, it is an elimination day, and Dahlia makes this soup. She makes I think it was like a sweet potato and black bean soup or something like that, and the judges they don't like it. They're like, they hate it. This is
a Pinterest mom recipe.
And this is so late in the show that you really should be stepping it up. And which
we need
how
more
many
sophistication.
How many times have we seen that on a fucking food
They're like this
show.
dish tastes fine, but it's ugly.
Mm-hmm. And she gets eliminated.
And I loved this part too because Dahlia thinks to herself like she thought that she would get eliminated on something she had no experience with or like was technically difficult because she's a self-taught YouTube cook, you know? But no, she got eliminated on something she loves. She loves this recipe.
It's a comfort food for her.
Yeah, and so it hits her extra hard and she just melts down. She does her exit interview, runs to her room. She doesn't want to see anybody, especially London. And then London shows up to her room being like, hey, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And she's packing and she's lashing out. And she's just like, I'm going home. And London's like, but you don't need to. And she's like, yeah, I do. They're getting me a flight tomorrow. And London's like, yeah, but just tell them you don't need the flight and stay with me until I leave. And she looks at London and she's like, you don't get it. You're not leaving. You're going to be in the final. Like, period, the end. And London's like, okay, then stay to the end. And then we can, you know, like, move to Nashville. Come to Nashville. Like, because Dahlia says, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. And I feel so stupid right now for quitting my job and doing all these things. And so then trying to problem solve, London's like, then come to Nashville.
London says the worst possible thing that they could say in this moment, which is come to Nashville.
I don't know. I didn't have a lot of sympathy for this.
I can understand both of them. Like, so she is emotionally volatile right now because something that she worked so hard, even though she didn't really think she had a chance of winning, she believed in herself enough to quit her job and come out to LA for a month and a half, potentially.
But, like, she can get that job back, like, immediately, right? She's a copy editor at a small paper.
Yeah.
They'll be like, yeah, sure, come back.
It's just, it boils down to this thing where she's like, the only thing worse than being kicked off right now is me coming to Nashville because I have no other options, like a lost little puppy.
Yeah, she says the only thing worse than not winning would be to follow you home like a puppy because this whole thing was me coming to do something on my own. And then London says,
well, then I'll go to Maryland. And
no, London says, I don't think that trying to be with me would be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because you can see that statement from both sides, right? If I was London, I would be devastated. I would be gutted by that
This
comment.
is a really well-written scene because I could see both of their... I would be both of these people in this scene.
Yeah.
And then London does that,
I don't know that I would be brave enough to be like, move in or I'll move in. That's really brave of London to be like, stay or I'll go to Maryland. Because they haven't even talked about being together afterwards. All they've been talking about is like, until we get eliminated, essentially.
And she is basically like, no, you can't do that. You can't throw away all of your dreams and you love Nashville and blah, blah, blah. And then she makes some harsh comments about how maybe they were both stupid for trying out. And then London gets pissed. London is demanding answers and is basically like, so what? This was a fucking fling to you? Because if it is, I'm fucking shocked. And she's just in a really messed up headspace. And she's because we're in her head for this. And she's thinking about how like they should have talked about this before and they never did. And right now she should be telling them how much she loves them. But all she can taste is her own bitter loss. And London is like, just wait for me. Be with me. And she's like, I need you to go. And they look at her and they say, well, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You disappointed me. And then they leave. And then she breaks down crying in her room alone.
This scene was rough. It was so well written.
We can kind of hop skip a little bit through because we're at the end of the book. So she gets back to Maryland. She misses London and she decides, because she doesn't really have any other options, she's going to move back home to Massachusetts to live with her dad for a little while. She starts packing. Yeah. she is packing, and we have a scene where London and Julie are talking, and they have a little heart-to-heart, and Julie is encouraging them about the final because it's official. It is London and Lizzie in the finale. But Julie also says, you shouldn't give up on Dahlia. Don't give up on her. And they can't stop thinking about each other. And then we have some stuff where Dahlia has like a makeup with her mom, and it's really sweet. Her mom helps her pack and confesses a bunch of things because Dahlia has always thought that her mom was really disappointed in her for divorcing Daniel because she really wanted grandkids and all of these things. And so she's been operating under the assumption that her mom is mad at her for divorcing her ex-husband. Turns out what it was surprise. Her mom is like, life has been nothing but surprises. And she has been she didn't want to get divorced from Dahlia's dad.
And this hit me as a mom because she was like, you told me that you were getting divorced, and then I realized that you were the one who asked for the divorce. And so I'm beating myself up as a mom because we might not be friends, but like, I feel like we should have the relationship where you can come to me if something like a marriage is awful. You know, like I didn't know that you were suffering for that long. And like, what the fuck am I must be doing something wrong. And then also, I really admire the fact that you would make that tough decision because the decision was made for me, essentially. And that really hit me.
Yeah. And then they're watching the 3rd episode of Chef's Special, she and her mom. And she's confesses, she's like, I'm in love with that person right there. And their mom is like, well, then you should go after them. And then we zippy zap.
Okay, this was insane.
Dahlia loved it.
It was insane.
London gets back to their hotel, and they have a package, and they realize it's from Dahlia before they even open it. And when they open it, there are 2 Tupperwares in here. The first Tupperware that they open is unrefrigerated roasted Brussels sprouts with garlic, and it reeks.
Roasted in butter.
And in her note says, I know, I hope it doesn't smell too bad. I tried to tape the container shut really well, but I'm nervous. I couldn't afford refrigerated packaging. If it's awful, you only have yourself to blame. I'm so sorry, London. You don't know how sorry I am. You're the only chef I'm rooting for. See you soon. XOXO. And the other Tupperware is Rice Krispie trees, which, surprise, surprise, made it on this unrefrigerated journey just fine. But it was so cute because it's both of their comfort foods.
Yes, absolutely. Here's the thing, listener.
It was unhinged, though.
Yeah, one of Dahlia's primo love languages is grand gestures, because the grand gestures are not over. This would have been the grand gesture if I was Dahlia. Like, this is the, where I'm reconnecting with you or whatever. But then, like, Dahlia goes bananas later. Anyway, so London is in the final with Lizzie. Team London, it happened. And they are online again. And, like, there is this section, listener, where they're reading all of the messages that they're getting from, like, supporters and people who are grateful for what they're doing. And it's not only, like, a trans kid in rural Kentucky, but also, like, the one that really made me cry.
The grandma?
Yes. The grandma whose grandkid had to help them write the message. And she says, like, I'm just so proud of your generation, and I admire your generation so much because you teach me new things every day. And I think about all of the people from my generation who didn't feel like themselves their whole life and didn't think it was an option to feel otherwise. And
it was beautiful.
Anita Kelly.
Yeah,
so then the family comes to town. And I, Sabrina, the thing I was screaming in my head the whole time is, why the fuck is he here?
The dad?
Yeah, I have so many questions for that mom. Mm-hmm. The mom gets like treated real well. Everybody thinks the mom is like great, and I have several questions for her.
So basically, long story short, they go to dinner and their dad gets a little drunk and then finally like leans forward and he says some ignorant shit, which just read the book. I don't feel like repeating it.
Yeah.
Says some ignorant shit, and London stands up for themselves and stands up for Dahlia, and then is like, I'm done, and stands up and I have a long day tomorrow, and leaves.
Yep.
So
love you all. Goodbye.
Yeah. And then there's a scene where they sit in the hotel bar with their mom and chat for a little bit. And their mother, most importantly, is like, do you want me to keep your dad away from filming tomorrow? And they're like, no, I want him there. I want him to see me win.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, that's my beautiful London. But here's sorry. While they're having this conversation, listener, it's been 3 years that London has been out. It's been 3 years since they've told everyone their pronouns and told them the identity that they're comfortable with. And the dad is not playing ball at all, right? So the mom is talking to London and she's like, I just don't know what to do anymore. And she's like trying to explain to London, like it's hard for him to be wrong and like bloody bloody blue, which again makes no sense to me because like your kids are not extensions of you. Mm-hmm. It doesn't reflect on you. Like, and it shouldn't. And if it does, like, why is that a bad thing? It's like, I'm baffled by this dad.
Yeah.
Anyway. But so then she says, I don't know what to do anymore. And London says, wait, are you going to get a divorce because of me? And the mom wonderfully grabs London by the face and is like, if my husband can't get over this and act right, that has absolutely nothing to do with you. This is not
a him
about
problem.
You at all. Right. My question is, how the fuck are you still with him 3 years later? How the fuck does he think it's okay to talk to your kid like that in front of you? Mm-hmm. And why the fuck is he here? Mm-hmm. I would have been like, you please get plane tickets for me and my 3 daughters. And then I would have looked at him and I would have said, oh no, they don't have enough plane tickets for you. Like, what is happening right now that this dad thinks it's okay to just like keep on going the way he's going?
So
what?
I fucking love this because London is fucking done. So we zippy zap. It's the next morning.
I love this.
It's the time for all of this. They are nervous as hell, but they're also like, they can't wait for Dahlia to show up. And then she does walk in with their family and they are dumbstruck at how hot she is in her poofy little skirt and her Converse and her shirt. And they're like, oh my God, Dahlia. But then they ask Janet to pull their father back there for just a second.
Yeah.
And so their dad comes back and London says, Dad, you start using my pronouns or else I'm done. You don't see me anymore. Their dad frowned, let out a small disbelieving huff. Now, London, I don't come over for Sunday suppers. London continued. You won't be allowed in my apartment. I won't see you at special occasions. I know we live in the same town and we might run into each other occasionally, but you've had 3 years, Dad, and every single time you use the wrong pronoun, what I hear is that even though I feel better about myself than I have my whole entire life, you don't respect me. You don't see me. Sometimes it feels like you don't love me. And yes, people slip up with pronouns all the time. It's natural to make mistakes, but every time you misgender me, it's purposeful and it fucking hurts. London took a breath. No matter what happens, whether I win or lose, don't find me after the show. I don't want to talk to you again until you decide. And I want you to take your time. Take this as seriously as I am. So, I'll see you back in Nashville, Dad. Or I won't.
Or I won't. This was so wonderful.
This, I can imagine.
I admired them so much. Oh my God.
That is. Confronting a parent like that and basically giving them an ultimatum on whether or not they're going to be in your life, it is so hard. And the thought that London was 26 when they did this, that is so young to me. Like when I could not have done that at 26. It took a lot of years of therapy to be able to like confront my parents about things. You know what I mean? Like, oh God, I love you, London.
Yeah, it was completely wonderful. I think I'm glad that it all worked out so that London could have this moment with their dad.
But you're
just
still like...
from a mom to mom, like how do you sleep in the same bed as that fuck? How?
Hey, we don't know if they sleep in the same bed.
Okay, how do you live in the same house? Like, we know that. Like, what? How? 3 years and you're still with him? Mm-hmm. I don't know about that. I don't understand that at all. Sorry.
I know it happens. You're just built different.
Oh, stop
Melody.
It. No, I'm not special. I'm not special as a mom.
No, but the fact that you would end a marriage over something like that, that is a special thing to you. Not a lot of people would do. A lot of people would just...
That's fundamental.
Let it slide by. Mm-hmm.
Like, and once you're going to treat my child like that, I don't give a fuck that they're your child too. You're not doing that to my... It's hilarious. I'm wearing a Mama Bear shirt today. I did not mean to.
Mama Bear indeed. So, like...
My head was on fire during this section.
Is it too late for you to adopt me, Melanie?
You want me to be your second mom?
Yeah. Yeah, although
I need your wisdom too much.
I don't know how I feel about some of the conversations that we have on /off podcast. Having that conversation with my second mom, you know?
I mean, who knows? You know?
Also, like, to be quite frank, you're not special. I did ask the Canadian contingent of our mutual friends if they were willing to adopt me as well yesterday, literally yesterday, because we were talking about healthcare.
Yeah.
I would be a great deal to be adopted, right?
Truly.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
I can buy my own house. I don't have to live with you. I'll buy my own house. I'll take care of myself. I just want to be adopted for socialized healthcare.
You're self-sufficient.
I don't see a problem with this.
Right.
So
it
anyway,
just seems natural.
We're just gonna cruise through this. It's the fucking finale. Everyone's watching. Dahlia is literally like chewing her fingernails to the nubs and freaking out.
Yeah.
She's more nervous than London is.
Yeah.
And they get their cooking
done.
Win.
And London wins. They win. And Lizzie stomps off like a sore losing bitch. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible. And Kat and Barbara keep on being like, don't you want to go up there? Shouldn't you go up there? And it's clear that London's looking for her. What?
Yes, you can finish.
Tell me about tell me about your big eyes.
I forgot to mention this. I loved this part of the book. We didn't comment on it when it first came up, and I forgot to mention it at the thing. I fucking loved this because this was such great representation in a book, because London is non-binary and generally mask presenting.
Right.
By the way, for listeners who don't know, just a little, like if you don't already know, mask, it's MASC, and it basically means masculine presenting.
Right. And then femme presenting is more feminine.
Yes. And it's exactly what you are probably guessing. It just means like what you generally stereotypically think of as what a man would wear, like according to like gender binary, what a man would wear. That's more mask presenting. And then what you think of as like the stereotypical woman would wear, that's femme presenting. But it is not a fucking binary. So London is typically mask presenting, but occasionally Julie does their makeup to the point where they actually brought their makeup with them to this, even though they haven't used it. But for the finale, Julie does their makeup.
Yeah, and there's like a whole hair and makeup team, and that's been available the whole time, but they're like, no, they don't do it right. Like, I don't look right when they do it, and they're not touching my hair, and like, whatever. And so Julie does their makeup, and they've got like green eyeshadow on, and a little bit of mascara.
And mascara.
Oh, hot.
It just made me...
Oh, my God. And Dahlia's in the audience being like, are they wearing makeup? Like...
That's so hot.
Oh my God.
It just made me so happy because I do find, and I don't have a problem with this because there's plenty of mask presenting people who refuse to wear makeup. There are plenty of femme presenting people who refuse to be seen without makeup. That's all fine. But that isn't, it's not, you don't have to sit just because you generally present as a gender role, right? Mm-hmm. And this happens a couple of times in the... Listener, read the fucking book.
The book's great.
It's so beautiful. And that just made me so happy. And I just needed to comment on that real quick.
Yeah.
So Dahlia disappears. She does not go down to them. She just fucks off into the twilight.
Hours later, London's sister, Julie, grabs them in the bar. And they're like, oh, you're needed at set. You gotta come with me. And London's like, what? This is fucked. But then they realize that Julie's probably up to something. And they figure out that it's something about Dahlia. Dahlia's doing something. And Dahlia has cooked an entire barbecue feast in the couple of hours that they've been, like all day, but the couple of hours. And it's like on the set that they cooked on.
When London walks in... and onto set, there's a dollar store congratulations banner strung across the judges' table. And Dahlia turns around. She's got flour all over her. Her hair's a wreck. Her little nest of hair has flopped to a side.
She's white-knuckling her shirt. Like, she's so nervous.
And they go up to the judges' table. They're eating at the judges' table. And she made barbecue for London with all of their favorite sides. And she's like, it's probably not the best barbecue. And they're like, this is the best barbecue. You have all of my favorite sides. Yeah. And then she has a bottle of white wine and a bottle of red wine for them. And London's like, you should really be drinking beer with barbecue. And she's like, how would I know that? I've never seen you drink beer, London.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of beer you like.
And she apologizes. And London's like, the Rice Krispie treats were the apology.
Thank you, London. Thank you.
And she's like,
this is over the top.
Did the package smell bad? And London's like, so bad.
Oh my God. Like hellfire.
And then they apologize to her. And she's like, no, don't apologize to me. And then London's like, what about we're just two very sorry people eating barbecue together? And then they eat a little bit.
Stop making out. And like the timer goes off for a sweet potato pie, and London's like, no, there's no way you also made my favorite pie. And she was like, Julie was really a great resource. And they're making out still. But then Dahlia looks at them and she's like, listen, hey, I really don't want to have spent 4 hours on this and have us not eat it. So
because then I'll cry.
Right. Can we go eat this, please?
And then, listener, it's epilogue times. They're together foreversies. They're in love. She's in Nashville.
It's 3 months later.
They started their nonprofit called Camp Cookout. It's a summer camp for queer kids to go learn to cook. And it's beautiful.
It's great.
And then the very last line of the book is her going to cook something. Because what she did is she has a part-time job at a university. And this was just so, I loved this because this is a great example of something that it comes up a little bit in the book. And so we know about it. And then it's brought to fruition in the epilogue, which is exactly what I want an epilogue to do. Tie up all those little loose ends. London has followed their dream because they don't want to be a chef. They're an audio engineer and can we get a London? They work on podcasts. That's what I want a London.
Listen, that's the goal. The goal.
I want London specifically, though. Anita Kelly, who inspired do you know somebody who inspired this character?
Are they an audio engineer?
Are they an audio engineer?
For this one?
Except that London wouldn't actually work because they want to work with music. They miss that thumping bass and like that. And so they started their dream job, and Dahlia's working part-time
while also being a food critic in the local paper and a content creator on YouTube.
And she makes like Pinterest mom recipes.
Yes, because they're delicious.
And then the book ends. At the very end, she's getting stuff out to make a video. And then she's like, oh, I just need one more thing. And then she digs in the back of the fridge and pulls out an onion. I just got chills. I can't think of a single thing. And this is uncommon. And usually there's a couple of loose threads where I'm like, but what happened here? You know what I mean? But this thing never got and there's not really a thing in this book where I'm like, damn, I really wish, except for the cow thing, which I'm going to message Anita Kelly about.
Yeah. And but that was novella wouldn't go amiss.
And see, that's the thing is I suspect that all of these characters that we're in love with, you know what I mean? I want a Kath novella, but I don't think
it was missing from this book. Yes. It would just be an amazing bonus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Listener, this book was great. This is a long-ass episode. And no regrets. It was so good.
I loved this book. And I listened to it twice yesterday while gardening all day. And
Melody, when you told me that last fucking night, listener, Melody and I talked Monday morning, and I was halfway through the book at this point. I asked Melody Monday morning, have you started book? The answer is no. Then we talked on the phone last night, Tuesday night, and I was like, have you finished book? And Melody said, I've listened to it twice. And I read it twice,
I said.
In my head, I was like, oh, that makes sense. She listened once on Monday and once today. No, listener. Melody listened to book twice in a row yesterday.
Yeah, I did. No regrets. It was amazing. What a great day I had. Well, because we're having people over and I wanted to, that's my lady love actually. My lady love is,
hey, Melody,
your projects done.
What's your lady love?
Yeah. Hey, do you have some projects that are halfway done all over your yard or house? Get a couple of those done. You'll feel great about it afterwards. Have you had a fern sitting in a planter on a deck that you needed to divide and put into a shade bed? Wow, has that fern been sitting there for 2 months and is maybe close to getting crispy? Fucking cut that shit up and put it in that shade bed. You will feel so much better afterwards. It'll look so good. So, yeah, that's my lady love. And that's basically what I did. I was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm reading the book for today while, cleaning out my entire garage and making a metric fuck ton of mulch out of cardboard that I needed to get cleaned up so my yard doesn't look like a literal dump. And got some things planted. I mowed the lawn completely and I weed whacked. I did all this shit while reading book twice, and it was incredible. What a great day. Also, Sabrina and I did also talk at around 9:30 last night, and at the end of the conversation, I found out that Sabrina could hear my trowel while I was working, and she said, it's 9:30, that's dark times where you are. How is that happening? And then she remembered that I got myself a headlamp.
Yeah, I didn't actually need Melody to explain anything because the minute I said, I was like, you can't even see. And then I was like, oh, no, she can't see. There's a headlamp involved. I'm almost positive. I love you. And I love the dedication that you have to the things that you love and the things that you enjoy.
Yeah, I'm a nutty person. Okay. What's your lady love?
My lady love is, so to give some context, I'm sure this is going to be very, very shocking. This is going to be surprising to literally everybody. But I have a tendency to borrow worries.
Oh, no.
In the sense that I will think of all of the ways that things can go wrong and I will worry about it until I start it. So my lady love is just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Because I've mentioned a couple of times, I'm in the process of preparing to move, which is complicated because I am 30 and I have 30 years worth of shit. I own a home. I plan to own my next home as well because I'm not fucking paying those rent prices.
Sure.
I have been there's a lot of reasons for me to be anxious about this move, but also like it needs to happen. And I have been, since making the official decision to move, it's been about 2 months since I have officially made the decision, right? And so I've been contemplating it for a long time, but okay, this is a thing that's happening. I need to start planning. I have been borrowing worry about it for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then last week I suddenly realized, oh my God, next week is July.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually we don't say things that make it super clear when we're recording, but it's July. It's the first week of July right now. And I realized last week, oh my fucking God, I want to move in September, which means I have 2 months.
That's no time.
I have 2 months. I have 2 months to sell my house, buy a new house, figure out moving, because I'm at a point in my life where I have too much shit to be comfortable with making my friends do it for pizza and beer.
Sure.
And so last week I just started and all of the worry is gone because I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
Right? It is in motion.
You've got big things checked off your list.
Yep. I figured out my moving company. I have my realtor for the city I'm moving to. This week I meet with the realtor for my house that I live in currently. I've talked to a mortgage broker, and that's all. I've been given the go-ahead for my budget. Yesterday, I figured out my down payment situation because since this is happening so quickly, if my house doesn't sell before I buy a house, I need to figure out my down payment, which those aren't cheap.
Sure.
Which if I'd had a year to plan for it, not a problem. 3 months? That's rough. But I got that figured out yesterday. I have a plan for packing. I'm just not worried about it anymore because I'm doing it. You know what I mean? I was borrowing worry. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? And then, so that's my lady love. If you're worried about the thing, and I'm so bad at this, I'm such a procrastinator. I'm definitely one of those ADHD people where I'll just not do the thing until it's the last minute.
Yeah.
But I knew I couldn't do that with this move.
Of course. And I'm really proud of you for just tackling it because it's true. Big projects like that, I feel like before you start, it feels like you're contemplating wrestling an alligator.
Uh-huh.
And then once you start it, you're like, oh, it's just an iguana. I can wrestle that thing into a tank. Sure. I can do that. Come here, gecko.
This is one of those little green lizards that you see crawling up your house wall occasionally. Actually, I couldn't wrestle that thing because I can't catch that thing. But
it's really fast, yeah.
The point stands. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I meant a lethargic gecko, you know.
Yeah. This one's, it's asleep. It's asleep. Melody, I can't believe that I didn't mention this during banter. I have to tell you about it now.
What?
Melody, the other night, we're talking about wrestling. Wrestling
alligators.
Aminals. I opened my door to go throw something in the trash, and it's nighttime, and a bird flew into my house. It took me like 15 minutes to get it out of my house.
It shouldn't be flying at that time. What a confused bird.
Bird, what are you doing? Oh my God. Yeah, I guess that's why. It's not long enough to be banter, but I just had to tell you. I had to wrestle a bird out of my house.
That's wild. All right. Keep being a badass and love
yourself as much as you love that good butch lesbian advice.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. That's wisdom right there.
It sure is.
Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by Melody Carlisle.
Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, tell all your friends about us, even if they don't read romance.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram @heavingbosoms, on TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult.
Head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter, get our Reading Embrace printable, and check out my audiobooks at heavingbosoms.com. All right, we'll be back next week with more swoons and snark. See you then.